love lifting and you've been at it for a while. Maybe you've had experience with anabolics in your past. Or maybe you're here on this video and attracted to videos like this because you're toying around with the idea just to get your feet wet first. Well, I know exactly where you're at, my dude. I know because I've been there. And I can speak with just about 100% certainty that you've opened a door that you cannot shut now. Pandora's box has been opened. And since we can't shut it, we might as well learn everything we can about these compounds to get the most benefits and the least side effects. Right? Which is why today, we're going to cover the top 4 most effective starter prohormones. Why and when you should choose one over the other. What makes these 4 specific prohormones ideal for a newbie. And the pitfalls to watch out for. Which, yeah, you can choose to ignore. I wouldn't. And at the end, I'm going to share with you the main reason why we should stick with just these 4 prohormones if we're starting out. And exclude all the rest. My name's Travis Dillard. I've been involved in the fitness industry. And I've been in the trenches for about 17 years now. I've had gyno. I've had estrogenic issues. I've had low estrogen. I've had high estrogen. I've had fertility issues. And recently I've been struggling a little bit with this receding hairline. But you can't see that, thank gosh. And I've devoted my life to giving out this information and clearing my head of all this information so that you, my friend, don't have to make those same mistakes. Everything you need to know about the top 3 best starter prohormones so that you can get and stay swole. Let's get it. So the key to understanding starter prohormones is that we must identify that a prohormone product might have 2, sometimes 3 prohormones. Starter prohormones just have 1 prohormone. At least that's why we start it. And the reason we do this is because the side effects. This is very important, so listen up. When a prohormone causes side effects, you'll know which prohormone caused what side effects because they're isolated. But if we mix a whole bunch of prohormones together, we'll have no idea what side effect is caused by what prohormone. So it'll overcome any benefits and you'll eventually just probably quit. Now, the 4 prohormones we're about to cover, obviously they're going to put on some serious muscle, but they range in terms of popularity. So what I've chosen to do is we're going to look through least popular to most popular based on the views of the breakdowns that I've had for each individual product. And if you haven't seen those, that's okay because we're about to break it down right now. Starting with number 4, dimethazine, which is 250 milligrams of just clean to the point epiandro, which converts to DHT in the body. It's not estrogenic, thank goodness. Has a half-life of 8 hours and it's dry. So it's going to be best for a cut. And I often recommend starting with dimethazine for 4 main reasons. First being suppression. You're going to have a lot less of it with epiandro when compared to a 4-andro like a Sustanon 250, for instance. The second is it's not going to be estrogenic. Therefore, we're not going to have to worry about water retention or gyno or puffiness or a moon face. And the third reason, plain and simple, is that dimethazine has more epiandro per pill milligram-wise than any other product on the market. And the fourth, it's actually close to home for me. I started with epiandro. It was the first anabolic I ever touched back in 2016. And I didn't exactly know how to cycle it or do anything right because quite honestly, I didn't have the information that I'm sharing with you now. 8 weeks. That's how long the cycle is going to be. You take 1 pill a day. Start with that. Again, it's 250 milligrams of epiandro, so you can work your way up to 2, but I would start with 1. And you can take it in the morning on an empty stomach, or I take it with food because it destroys my stomach. And just so we all know what we're actually getting ourselves into here, let's go ahead and talk about the side effects, which there's not going to be a lot of them, and they're not going to be very harsh, but there's enough to at least bring them up. Epiandro converts into DHT, which can have some effect on your hair thinning or hair loss, especially if it runs in your family. However, one that I talked about last video, but I've only brought this up once, so I'm going to bring it up again. 8 weeks on, 8 weeks off, 8 weeks on, 8 weeks off, taking epiandro. Right now, you might not have any issues. You might say, hey, look, I am taking off. I'm using those 8 weeks. Except for the fact that epiandro can eventually, over time, saturate and get into those hair follicles. And so it eventually just thins it out completely, and now you're bald. You can also experience some acne, potentially some dry joints, and maybe fleeting thoughts. And these fleeting thoughts can come up because, after all, prohormones are a central nervous system stimulator. And if we don't have any experience stimulating our central nervous system, so haven't taken any uppers before, we've never had caffeine, or we don't take it on a daily basis, or we're in the gym, we're not working out very hard, and our body's in a parasympathetic state versus a sympathetic state, which is kind of where we want to be if we want to get adjusted to prohormones, because prohormones will inevitably have an effect on our central nervous system because they are, in fact, stimulators. But if dry joints just aren't your thing, you might be more interested in a 19-nor, like number 3, decabolin, which is 75 milligrams of just 19-nor, and it converts to a compound that looks similar to nandrolone. And contrary to the real nandrolone, it's dry and has a half-life of 12 hours. And this can be used for a cut or a bulk. I recommend this one for 4 main reasons as well. The First of which is that it's really the only prohormone that can increase the synovial fluid around the joints between the cartilage, giving us that joint lubrication benefit. Second of which is that it's just raw, clean 19-nor. It's very basic. And notice how I didn't say decadurabolin, which is twice the dosage. The reason why we want to start with decabolin is we want to see how 19-nor affects us first before we go ahead and up the dose. Now, you are going to get more bang for your buck with decadurabolin, but at least wait till the second cycle. And number 3 is simply just a repeat of number 2, because I can't stress the importance enough about what we're doing here. We're isolating 19-nor, so we need to ensure that the prohormone product we're taking only has 19-nor in it and nothing else, so that we can understand the side effects that affect us today to know whether we should increase the dose today or decrease it today, or what we should do about it in the future, whether we should continue to run it or not. Number 4, no decadec. And by the way, if you're getting value from this information and you want more of it throughout the week, a shortened version of it, we'll head on over to Instagram at Prohormone Pro. I'll be putting out 3 shorts a week from now on. I think you guys are going to find it very valuable. I'll see you over there. As for the side effects, suppression can happen, but not near as much as a 4-andro like a Sustanon 250. And we have seen anecdotally that some people have experienced high cholesterol. But let's be honest here, cholesterol really is just an overall health marker. So if a lot of us just lost 10 to 15 pounds, we'd feel a lot better and our cholesterol levels would go down. So really it's just a lifestyle change. And there is some evidence too that 19-nor can increase prolactin levels. But the 19-nor and decabolin or even decadurabolin is never going to be high enough to where our prolactin levels are actually going to increase from it, so we're not going to have to worry about it at all. Cycle time is going to be 8 weeks. I recommend 2 pills a day, start with 1, which takes us to our next product, which I personally have run myself for an 8-week cycle, and there's 8 separate videos on it, which you can check out after this. But number 2 goes to Sustanon 250, which is 150 milligrams of 4-andro, a precursor to an anabolic that looks similar to testosterone. And though it also contains 100 milligrams of epiandro, which is dry, the high dose of 4-andro makes it wet. So I recommend this one as a starter prohormone for a number of reasons as well. The first being is that 4-andro, milligram-wise per pill, it has more than any other prohormone on the market. The second is the esters attached to the 4-andro. So the short esters, propionate, and the long ester on decanate, and everything in between, well, it's going to allow you to feel it today and sustain it in the future throughout your cycle. And personally, I love the fullness and the vascularity effect as well. Also, again, just like the other 2, you're going to want to go with an 8-week cycle here. I personally ran an 8-week cycle myself. I started with 1 pill a day, and I worked my way to 2, and then I got a little bit of anxiety, so I went back down to 1. But if you want to see what that journey looked like, again, that's up above. As for the side effects, this is going to be more suppressive than just about every other prohormone we've talked about today and pretty much out there, because 4-andro is in fact the most suppressive on our natural testosterone levels. And this will aromatize into estrogen, so we are going to want to watch out for puffy nipples and gyno. And we don't want to let it get too high, because this can increase our blood pressure. And please keep in mind that when we're talking about an increase in blood pressure, where does this come from? This comes from an increase in mass, increase on the strain of our heart. Where does mass come from? Well, it's not just muscle we're talking about here. We've also got fat, organs, and you guessed it, water. But this can easily be countered by just using aromatase. And for me personally, it did give me some anxious thoughts within the first 2 weeks, but I did something about it. I took 5-HTP and ashwagandha, and I also moved from 2 pills a day down to 1. That's what I did. If you have problems with anxiety, it might help you out too. 8 weeks, that's how long the cycle length is. 2 pills a day. Again, I went from 1 to 2, back down to 1, but do whatever you deem fit. And finally, we have moved on to the prohormone god, the king of all prohormone starters, the most popular prohormone, the prohormone that started this whole channel and why we're here where we are today. The number 1 spot goes to 1-testosterone. It's got 110 milligrams of 1-andro, which converts into 1-testosterone. So think of this more like as a dry version of 4-andro. So it's going to be best for cutting. And this has a half-life of 12 hours. So I really am a big fan of 1-testosterone for a couple of reasons. The first is that it's very simple. It's concrete. You know what you're going to get. It's very consistent. The second being is that it doesn't require a lot of ancillaries, specifically because estrogenically it's not going to be going up. Therefore, we're not going to have to worry about aromatase. But pro tip, because we have seen in some cases that 1-testosterone has in fact led to estrogenic related side effects like gyno, water retention, just overall puffiness. So be sure that you have aromatase on hand anyway. And anecdotally, it's often equated to having a little bit less anxious thoughts when compared to a 4-andro, which I personally have experienced myself, so I know this to be true. And in terms of side effects for 1-testosterone, we should still expect some level of suppression. Now, not near as much as a 4-andro, but we still will need a PCT. If you don't know what that is, click above. And the main side effect, the main culprit, is going to be dry joints. This can easily be overcome with citrus bergamot and fish oil. And again, it's going to be an 8-week cycle. Start with 1 pill a day and then work your way to 2. I personally, though, would need a little bit more information on these starter prohormones before I decided which one I was personally going to take. And if that's you, well, here's the 4 starter prohormones all compiled together, the breakdowns with the specifics on everything you need to know. I'll be in the comments section answering questions. Until next week, stay safe and stay swole, my brothers.